What's happening, Camdens? It's me, truly the dumbest. And today, as you've seen in the title and the thumbnail, today is the end of a trilogy. Today is the day that I finish my complaining about Circle of Healing and map offerings. Now, why have I decided to put this in a trilogy format? I don't know. It just kind of fit together perfectly. Of course, we had my first video, which was a rant about map offerings, completely unhinged, not planned, mapped out at all, as most of my videos are. And then on top of that, we have my Circle of Healing rant, which is unhinged, and I was ill. And I tried my best to make sure nobody saw that video because of how unhinged I was, but it's still my most viewed video. So here I am, closing out the trilogy with the video ranting about both aspects of the game. I guess aspects, or both things. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say here, so I'm gonna jump straight into my rant. So yeah, let's go. All right, so to start, I'm gonna map offerings. As I've said before in the past, I still think map offerings are absolutely unfair, and they should honestly be entirely removed still. Primarily, why do I think this? Well, first, I think it allows whichever side who brings them to stack the odds in their favor. And I think in a game where, if an asymmetrical game where it's inherently imbalanced, no matter which way you believe it is, if one side brings an offering of their choice, it just makes it more inherently unfair, right? You already have just the premise of the game being unfair. I don't think there's a reason to make, take RNG out of the equation and make it even more unfair in general. Now, of course, this goes for both sides. This isn't just a killer or just a survivor thing. I think both sides can easily abuse this feature, beyond terribly. For example, in the past, we've had things such as the boil over Eerie thing, where people would run to the one corner of Eerie Crows when boil over was first buff, and you'd have to take them through, and then if you wanted to hook them, you weren't gonna be able to, because you had to break the wall, you had to take them, you had to fall, so they get their free 25%. And then, there's no other hooks nearby. You'd have to fall again to either get to the outside, or you can take it slow and they would still, probably push you off because of how strong it was. That's just that's one of many examples. Another one being the boil over exponential boon thing they had in RPD, where you could go up to the library and then do the same thing. You can either get slugged, or you could, boil over, fall off, run back up. It's stuff like that makes the game unfun, right? Abusing the poor map design. I think it makes it far more unfun for whichever side brings it. And of course, it's not just the survivor thing, like I said. But for example, there's Starstruck Nurse on Midwich, when that was still a thing. Of course, all of these things have been patched out by this point, but it's nonetheless, these are just very minute examples of a larger problem, in my opinion. So yeah, I just think that in general, it allows one side to stack the odds and makes it, much harder for the other side, just needlessly harder. No matter what side you're on, I think both sides face the issue. But yeah, that's really it. But instead of just complaining about it, I want to give some possible fixes for not only map offerings, but just maps in general. But for map offerings, I don't think there is a fix. I think they should absolutely just be gone. As I said already, twice, I think they should just go. Bye-bye. But for fixing actual poor map design, so if they don't want to remove map offerings, they could, it wouldn't be as unfair. I think really all most maps need in this game, in my opinion, to be far better than they are, it's just a couple of palette and window updates. Say for Fractured Cowshed, if they removed 2 or 3 of the filler palettes, it'd still be a really terrible map, but it'd be a lot less strong. For maps like the game, if they removed a few palettes from there, it'd also not be that strong. For maps like Hanfield, if they removed a bunch of windows, replaced with breakable walls, or just not vaultable areas, I once again think it just wouldn't be that strong. A lot of problems with maps in this game is rectified just by simply removing some pallets or removing some windows. And I think that's especially clear in RPD. In RPD, they reworked the map, and some people think it's worse than before, or just as bad as before. I personally don't think that. I think it's still completely terrible. Like, it's still a really miserable experience with most killers. But at the same time, it's not. It is. Well, the reason why people say that is because of the pallets, right? It's not because of the size anymore. The size, in my opinion, is fine. It could be worse, but the pallets are the problem. Like, behavior really, they really took one of the most complained about maps in Dead by Daylight history because of its god pallets and its size, nerfed its size and gave it more god pallets. They have the one pallet on the the balcony, the entrance, the door to the, I don't remember the area where the gate can spawn. You have the little doorway that enters towards like the interrogation rooms, and then they added a god pallet there that you have to break. And then they added the god pallet obviously to the top of the stairs in the center area for whatever reason. They didn't really remove the one god pallet in in the left offices. In the right offices, they also didn't remove the pallet. They just kind of made it worse, if anything. They didn't make any substantial changes, or it feels like they didn't make any substantial changes because of the pallet spawns and because there's so many strong pallets in the map still. Like, if they were to remove the stairway pallet, if they were to remove like the left hallway or the left offices pallet, if they were to remove the one doorway pallet I mentioned, if they were to remove maybe like a couple other pallets, or maybe just make a couple other pallets weaker by adding more like entrances and stuff, I think the map would actually be really fun and a lot better than it is now. But because of those pallets, it just ruins the overall experience. I think this goes for most maps too, like Haddonfield. Haddonfield, I think, is way worse, like gameplay wise, than it was before. Now, of course, before you had the miles upon miles of fences and grass, but that would only hinder like M1 killers or killers that can't like move fast. So of course it was a problem, but it wasn't a problem for everyone. Now, every building has 100 windows that are all god windows. They're not weak windows that survivors can easily abuse, and because of the size of the buildings as a whole, they can't be blocked. They're virtually infinite unless you have bamboozle or not spiritual anatomy, it's superior anatomy. They're all basically infinites. And it's funny too, because Haddonfield doesn't have many pallets. There's maybe one strong pallet, which I guess it kind of earns for not really having like any pallets at all. But I think that if they were like, let's say for the main Haddonfield building, now I know the Strode estate, like, or whatever it's called. I know it just got changed, so I'm not really sure what the change was. But for the old one, where there's the window in the closet room, it would be so much easier if they were to remove that window or make it a breakable wall, right? So if the killer wants to loop someone or play something weird, make it a breakable wall. Or they could make the front window a breakable wall or something, because that's also a very strong vault. Or maybe they could add a breakable wall to the right where there's no windows right now, so it's much easier to cut off survivors who are trying to loot the building. And let's say for the back left building with the shed, it would be like, because there's two windows on one side on the bottom floor. What if they turned one of those to a breakable wall? It'd make that window a lot more risky, right? Because you can either guess whether the killer is going to come through the breakable wall, or they could come from the right. So you gotta take your 50-50, and if you play wrong, then you're dead. I think those are just a few examples, but I think almost every map in the game could go through this and make it so much nicer for killers. Because, I mean, although I've said I'm trying to be impartial, let's be real, it's always survivors bringing map offerings. There's like 1 out of 10 games is a killer bringing a map offering. And what map offerings do you see most? Macmillan Estate for some reason. Maybe, I don't know. You see Coldwind all the time. Garden of Joy. What other map offerings have I seen recently? I see a lot of map offerings. I've seen Dead Dog a few times. I've seen RPD a lot. Like, survivors are always taking the worst maps and Macmillan because, you know, it makes it so much harder for the killer. Like, I mean, I of course, I don't play Survivor as much as other people, but I rarely, even when I play Survivor, I rarely ever see a killer map offering. And it's just, it really bothers me because as someone who constantly plays against map offerings, it's annoying because I feel like I'm at an inherent disadvantage. And on top of that, most people who bring map offerings are usually bad at the game. Like I almost always win map offering games, but it's always an unfun experience. So I mean, it's not really even worth the win in my opinion. Nonetheless, though, that's really all I have to say on map offerings. Why I think they should be removed. I hope that was a lot more cohesive than my last video on map offerings. Who knows? It probably wasn't though. So moving on to the my circle of healing rant. All right, now it's time for the bulk of the video. Circle of healing. Now I've made it very, very, very clear in the past how much I utterly despise this perk. Of course, if you saw my my circle of healing rant, if you talked to me 5 seconds about it, if you looked at any of my videos where circle of healing is prevalent, I'm always groaning, I'm always scoffing, I'm always shitting on the perk because it is, at least in my opinion, horribly unfair. Now, why is it unfair? Well, first of all, it allows anyone to heal themselves, even when just one person brings the perk. All they have to do is bring it and place the boon. Anybody can heal themselves at all times, no matter what. As long as they're in that radius, they can heal themselves. I think that's inherently unfair. Like, why can one person bring something that heals the entire team? Like, that does not seem fair whatsoever. That's like if self-care gave everybody the option to, like, heal everybody. Like, self-care is an awful perk, but if self-care gave everybody in the game the ability to heal themselves, even if one person brings it, it'd be the most used perk in the game, or up there, because that's such a strong feature. You can literally give any horrible perk the ability to self-heal, and it'd be one of the best perks in the game, because the ability to self-heal when you don't have anything that's self-heals you is strong as shit. It's objectively strong. And the fact that so many people try to defend this perk is just ridiculous. But I'll move on to that whole people defending this perk thing in a minute. First, though, we're going to move on to my second point, because that was my first point. It's just that it doesn't matter what points or what now. You're just going to get a rant. Moving on, though, I think many totem placements just make it hard for less mobile kills to snap boons. Like, let's think of this situation, right? I'm a Deathslinger. No, let's go with Bubba, so it sounds less biased. I'm Bubba. You know, I'm a killer who doesn't have the best map pressure. Very good in chase, but that's really it. Alright? I haven't been able to use my chainsaw a whole lot because I'm in the game, so I've had to slap people. So I have 3 people injured, with 1 person in chase being healthy. Bam! A boon goes up. Within the next 30 seconds, all those survivors are healed. So it's like, okay, I gotta kick this, because they're healing, and I can't do anything about it. So, I go run off, and I gotta try to find the boon. Where's the boon? I don't know. I don't know where the boon is. I have to listen for it. I have to search for it, search for the sound, and find the actual placement. I'm on the bottom floor. Oh shit, it's on the top floor. Now I gotta go all the way around and kick the boon. By that time, you've already lost the game. You spent like 2 minutes searching for a boon. And then, you know, 2 gens are done. 3 gens are done. Like, and if, let's say another example, Ironworks of Misery. I had this recently, and it's awful. You can play, there's a totem spawn in the top room of Ironworks. And if survivors boon that, if I'm playing Wraith or something, or not Wraith, I guess Wraith is actually pretty good at macro. If you're playing, if we're playing Bubba again, right? Or no, let's go Deathslinger. I'm just gonna screw it. I'm going Deathslinger. Let's say I'm playing Deathslinger, because this is what happened. I was playing Deathslinger on Ironworks, and I'm injuring people, and I really can't, I can't push one survivor a whole lot at the moment. Or let's just say that I'm chasing one survivor, and then everybody's injured, and they place a boon, and everybody heals. So throughout the course of the match, I cannot spread pressure through injuring survivors, because they just run to the boon. And I can't go and kick the boon, because I'm a killer who relies heavily on pressuring survivors. So if I stop pressuring survivors, go kick the boon, then I've essentially lost. I have to go all the way up and around the staircases, break the walls, vault the windows, whatever I need to do. I need to kick the boon, and I need to get back in. By the time it takes me to do that, they can automatically or not automatically, but they can already replace the boon. It just makes it so much harder for killers, and especially with all the other horrible totem placements, like in Eyrie of Crows, like in what other ones, like in Badham in the basement. It's just there's so many terrible totem positions that make it so much harder. And there's something that I realize about boons, and that's every bad totem placement for killer is a fantastic totem placement for survivor. Like, because they can just place it and get there easily or something like that. It's just there's so many. It's so awful on so many occasions. And it's the same thing with the library in Midwich. All right, it's a bit hard, or it's a bit easy to go kick, sure, but people on both floors can get value from it. It's just I think it's just horrendously unfair. And it's like, when people just say go kick it, I can't. I'm playing a killer that requires me to pressure everything at all times because I'm not that strong. And this goes for so many killers. Like Trapper, it's nearly impossible. With Wraith, it's hard, but at the same time, kind of easy because he moves fast. With Billy, it's non-existent, but at the same time, he's an insta-down. It's just... you can name so many killers. Like, there's at least a quarter, maybe even half the killers in the game suffer from stuff like this. Which is rough, because then it makes playing the killer unfun. Because, you get Circle of Healing. And it's not like Circle of Healing is a niche perk. It is a very common perk. I see the perk every 2 to 3 games. Sometimes I see 2. And it's miserable. Because you hear that, and if you're playing the wrong killer, you think I'm screwed. And then you can't do hit and run because of it, because they can just go and heal. And it also makes healing perks just that much, or healing perks, anti-heal perks just that much weaker. Because even then, it doesn't matter because they don't have to go find the survivor. But, I don't get off that point because I still got a lot to go. Moving on to my next point, multiple people can bring boons. Like I mentioned a second ago. And you go kick a boon, the other one's already up. Or you have 2 boons at 2 different times, so people have 2 different areas to go to heal. So if you're chasing in one area of the circle of healing, or if you kick it, they can just go to the other one. And the other person replaces it, so when you go kick the second boon, the first boon's already back up. It's just baffling. It's baffling that behavior didn't think about any of this. And I don't really have a whole lot to say on this because I think it speaks for itself. But it makes it, once again, so much harder for the killer to do anything pressure-wise. You can't spread pressure at all. And this is why perks like Eruption and stuff are always so prevalent, because, you can't spread pressure through injuring survivors, spread pressure through kicking gens, through regressing gens. That's why perks like Eruption and Call of Brine were so prevalent, on top of the fact that they're just strong. Because you can't really pressure survivors through injuring them anymore. They don't have, in this day and age, they don't have to go and find another teammate to heal themselves. They can just go to their circle of healing with their strong-ass medkit, or without their strong-ass medkit, and heal themselves. And because you have to keep the gens pressured, you can't go out and pressure them, and you can't go out and kick the boon. But as I said, I don't have a whole lot to add on this point, so I'll move on to the next one. And this one is kind of just a problem with boons as a whole. There's no penalty for kicking the boons. Or there's no penalty for having your boon snuffed. It gets snuffed, you can replace it instantly. You can even replace the boon while the boon's active. I think that's dumb. I think that's a problem with boons more than Circle of Healing. But at the same time, every other boon is pretty ass, besides Shadow Step, which I'm sure if this would be nerfed, I'm sure if Circle of Healing would be nerfed or reworked, Shadow Step would become really popular, which would suck because Shadow Step is a more annoying, not stronger, but annoying, perk. Nonetheless, though, not really a whole lot to say on this because, it's just a boon thing, not a Circle of Healing thing. And I want to address some counter arguments. No, there are no counter arguments. You're wrong, because my opinion's always right. You know the deal by this point. My opinion is the right one. You're all wrong. I hate you. Moving on though, to I guess, last portion of this video, which is reworks and changes. I've mocked up a few changes and reworks to Circle of Healing and kind of just boons in general. So just so I'm not speaking out my ass and complaining without giving any help. So first I'm going to do some boon. I have a boon change. I think when snuffed, boon perks should go on a 30-second cooldown. This would make, the other boon perks weaker, sure, but I don't give a shit. I mean, if it nerfs Circle of Healing, nobody uses any of the other boons anyway. All you see is Circle of Healing, or at the bare minimum, you see every boon paired together or paired with Circle of Healing. I can't think of a single opportunity or game besides pairing Boil Over with Exponential and RPD where someone has brought two boons or a single boon that wasn't Circle of Healing. So it doesn't really affect the other boons that much. Moving on though, because that's not what this is about. Circle of Healing reworks. I have mocked up 3 reworks that I think would make Circle of Healing far better than they are now. The first one is a change I'd rather not see out of the 3 changes, but if they had to choose one, or if they wanted to do the least amount of changes to the perk, this is what I would do. Unlocks the self-care ability, allowing you to heal yourself without needing a med kit at 35% of the normal healing speed. Right now it's 50. I want to be honest, I'm not too sure if the lower the number, the slower it is, or the faster the number, the slower it is. Just assume that it's 15% slower when healing yourself. And for people who are going to complain, saying that that's going to be more useless than self-care, genuinely shut up, because you're actually delusional. In no world will this perk ever be worse than self-care if anybody can heal themselves. That is not the problem. The healing speeds was never the problem. It's the fact that they can heal themselves. But on top of that change, I have reduces the healing efficiency of medkits by negative 70%. So using medkits is 70% less efficient. A very hefty amount, but at the same time, this is a perk that should not be paired with anything else. It's already strong by itself, and if you want to bring a medkit, just bring a damn medkit. I mean, I don't know. I think that's fair. To be fair, though, I'm a salty, grudge-filled killer main. So, moving on though to my second change. This one is just kind of nerfs. This one's a bit heftier of a change of a nerf. First, increases all healing speeds by 75%. There is no healing, or there is no self-heal, so I figured that if you were to bring a shitty medkit, this would be a better perk for that, rather than just self-healing yourself. And reduces the healing efficiency of medkits by 50%. So, I know I just said that medkits would be a bit more efficient, but at the same time it's not going to be efficient, because I still think this is a perk that should not incentivize pairing with medkits, and should not incentivize really self-heal. This is a perk that I think should incentivize team healing. Because, that's how... Okay, so moving on to my final change, since I clearly can't articulate myself properly. This one is just a Circle of Healing. This is not a boon. Now, this one's a hefty-ass rework. And out of all these changes, I would rather this change be put into place, or something along this line, because I don't think Circle of Healing works in any way as a boon. Circle of Healing is just inherently flawed in design and inherently unfair. The ability to heal yourself within that radius, self-heal or just incredibly fast, is very strong and very clearly just poor game design. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to rework the perk entirely. Now, I changed the opening quote because it's not, or the opening quip because it's not, boon anymore. You're at your best under the eyes of evil. Whenever you are injured, and an injured... I immediately messed up. Whenever you are injured and an injured survivor is within a 16-meter radius of you, press the active ability button. For 30 seconds, any survivor within that radius, as well as yourself, gains a 35% increase in healing speeds. Activating Circle of Healing will make you the Obsession, and Circle of Healing has a 45-second cooldown. Now, this makes Circle of Healing far, far worse than it was before. because it doesn't give you the ability to self-heal, which I think is absolutely alright. I don't think any perk in the game besides self-care, just because of how bad it is, should give you a self-heal. Or anybody else a self-heal. I don't think any perk should give people who don't bring the perk a self-heal. That's what I meant to say. I mean, obviously I've explained why it's so far, but in this case, this will incentivize more team healing. So, you know, if like there's two people who are injured and you're injured, you can proc this and all heal yourself very quickly, or all heal each other very quickly. I think that's far more fair because you actually got to go and find your teammates. And also you got yourself the whole becoming the obsession thing. So you're kind of, in a way, targeting yourself or making yourself the target, or at the same time, maybe not making yourself the target if the killer saved the best for last. Nonetheless, though, I think this is a lot more fair. I tried to design a rework without killing the perk, because I think nerfs, I would kill the perk entirely. I don't think I'd make the perk useful if it was just flat nerfs, but for a rework, I think making it more interesting while being useful is better. Now, I know I said that you should never kill a perk if it's too strong. In this case, I think you should, because it is inherently unfair, unlike Eruption, which was just living its life. Please, behavior, give Eruption give Eruption a 15% regression rate. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys agree with my opinions. If you don't agree with my opinion, I'm going to assume that you're a Survivor main, and I'm going to ban you permanently. I'm going to force unsubscribe you if you're subscribed. I want to dislike your comment, and I'm going to call you some mean names. Like Fartface. And Nia main. Or Meghead or something, I don't know. I'm tired. Anyway, osteoporosis, muchacholinis.